What's up, you guys? It's Joseph here. Twitter, the social media platform, has seen a lot of controversy and confusion in recent weeks. And I'm not just talking about the latest and greatest Twitter hack of all time that compromised many notable accounts on the platform. More and more recently, we've seen opinions being stifled and censored in what has often been labeled and described as tech fascism by big social media monopolies such as Twitter, the result of which has been a mass exodus from the platform in what has been labeled a Twexit movement. People that are seeking new pastures, a supposed safe haven from this unwanted regulation and political censorship. And Parler, a emerging new social media platform, has been so far the most recent and obvious answer to those needs. Now, Parler is, interestingly enough, a US social networking platform that is marketed as being kind of a free speech alternative to Twitter and Facebook. So today in this video, what I want to do is I just want to take a few moments and provide an objective and unbiased analysis of Parler as a new and emerging social media app in the market today. We'll discuss what it is, does it have potential, who's backing it, and what's really to be the likely outcome of Parler in the next couple of months or potential year. And most importantly, does it really have a fighting chance against these big, giant tech social media monopolies that are out there? And so to answer those questions, I've kind of simplified and broken down our conversation in my notes into really what you can keep in the back of your mind as the 4 Ps. Number 1 being the platform. We'll talk a little bit more about Parler's origins. Number 2 is the progress. What current trajectory does it have in the social media market today? Number 3 is going to be the problems, some things that I've seen with Parler's UI, and also some of the main obstacles that it faces from a competitive standpoint that very well make or break the success of the platform. And finally, we will conclude by talking about, does it show any promise? What are the telltale signs of failure or success that it's had so far? And does it really have a chance to face some of these tech tyrants that we've seen out there? And so before we get into our discussion, if you receive any value from this video, you find this information entertaining, please be sure to hit that like button down below and consider subscribing to this channel here on YouTube for future information like this every single week. That being said, and without further ado, let's get started. So to kick things off, Parler, interestingly enough, actually comes from the French verb parler, which literally translates to speak. And that's really the main premise of the platform. In fact, the CEO and founder of Parler, 28-year-old computer programmer John Matze, has even said that the platform is supposed to be a community, kind of a virtual town square, or what he described as New York City streets, where anyone can voice their great opinions and anyone can speak. Parler currently stands at around 3 million daily active users on the platform, and currently has actually attracted many notable politicians and public figures, including but not limited to Alex Jones, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Eric Trump, Donald Trump, and Mark Levin. And currently has actually been making, as a platform, great progress in the social media market. In fact, just a couple of days ago when I checked, it was ranked number 2 in the App Store. Now it's been pushed and promoted by, honestly, quite a variety of different celebrities and public figures, leading to the platform actually growing by over 500,000 users just this past week. Now, this has also been in direct response to several large accounts on Twitter that have recently been banned and locked, including Carpe Dunkum, a recent pro-Trump meme creator, and also some of Donald Trump's personal tweets that have been censored for supposedly unfair reasons. And this constant dialectic of censoring certain voices on the platform while leaving others of similar nature virtually untouched has, as you can imagine, created quite a bit of friction on the platform, not just between political parties, but also between companies as well. In fact, in recent articles, many companies are actively looking to spend their advertising dollars elsewhere and have completely boycotted Facebook and Twitter altogether. So speaking of Twitter, how similar is Parler actually to Twitter from a user interface perspective? Well, for one, Parler allows you to create posts that have up to 1,000 characters, which is 4 times as much as anything that you can fit into a tweet on Twitter. And what's also an interesting similarity is that Parler gives you parlays, which are the Twitter's equivalent to tweets. And instead of a retweet, you can do what's called echoing a post. They're called echoes, and it's the equivalent of you upvoting or distributing someone else's quote or post onto your own social medium or grid. One interesting facet that I'll mention that kind of threw me for a little bit when I first signed up for Parler, which, by the way, you can find me on the platform at Joseph Todd. I'll leave a link to my socials down below in case you're interested in connecting on the platform. But the thing that threw me was the ability really to customize the color experience of the entire platform. Now, we have certain social media platforms that are identified by certain flagship colors. So you have the Facebook blue, you've got Twitter's light blue, you've got TikTok's teal and pink flagship combo. And interestingly enough, when you're signing up for Parler, you're given the option to choose what that color is. So for me, I chose this dark red, which is kind of, if you take a look at their actual app icon, it's got that primary color, which is probably what it's going to be known for. But some friends sent me some screenshots on the platform of their feeds or their grids, and it kind of threw me for a little bit that there were different people using different colors, and that diversity is something that's really a unique feature to Parler. So that being said, let's take a moment and talk about some of the main problems that Parler is facing. And one of the immediate problems that is probably the most notable is that Parler currently is made up of a primarily conservative user base. Now, Parler's CEO, John Matze, has actually made it very clear that the platform is not just for conservatives. It's for anyone who wants a platform to voice an opinion, to speak without fear of regulation, and is completely neutral in its ideologies. It doesn't claim allegiance to any political platform. In fact, John Matze has actually gone to the extent of offering a $20,000 progressive bounty to any liberal on Facebook or Twitter that has over 50,000 followers on one of those platforms that joins Parler. And so the platform has made it very clear that it's really trying to take every action step possible in order to offset the mass influx of inbound traffic that are conservatives and get liberals to flock to the platform too, to really balance out some of the conversations and really the entire demographic of Parler. However, that being said, although Parler is often heroed as this big free speech alternative to Twitter, it isn't completely uncensored. It's not free reign for anything and everything under the sun to be said. That would be a terrible idea. And in fact, we've actually seen the consequences of platforms that have taken this approach. For example, Gab, which has often been the source of, let's just say, some pretty malicious conversations. In fact, what Parler has tried to do in recent months is clearly lay out their policies for conduct on the platform and define what, in fact, are some of the inherent limitations of discourse. And by the way, you can find these policies in the link below this video, along with, of course, all the articles referenced so far. But that being said, with all of this in mind, Parler kind of has, in a sense, taken an action step to create its own declaration of internet independence, and have actually stated that if your message, the content that you post on the platform, if it's not protected by the United States First Amendment and the principles therein, then it's not protected by them. You can't start fights on the platform. You can't be overly oppressive in conversations, but you can get your message across. You can have that freedom to speak without unwanted regulation, and you can have that transparency. And that so far has really been the media's primary focus on Parler. And of course, with that additional media attention and the inherent nature of Parler being another social media platform, there's always going to be a fair share of people looking to stir up trouble, push the limits and boundaries of what is acceptable on the platform. And that's really led to a lot of debate within the Parler community where the line should be drawn. And that's something that we're really looking to see how Parler is going to iron out exactly without becoming super oppressive or defining its political ideologies as Twitter tends to be. Now, the other thing that I wanted to discuss really quickly is actually take a quick look at Parler's UI, its user interface, and I wanted to talk about some of the technical issues that it's currently trying to iron out. And so one of the things that I mentioned previously on my YouTube channel was talking about TikTok, and one of the genius promotion strategies that I actually talk about on my secondary channel about TikTok was its entire genius marketing concept of making content and the nature of the platform so shareable, increasing that shareability factor, which is something that Parler severely lacks at the moment. It's very difficult to drive traffic to and from Parler, and it doesn't even have an embedded feature yet, which means a lot of the articles that I've referenced in this video have only been able to talk about posts or features on Parler because they're not able to link to them in any way. So that's one of the main wrinkles that Parler is really going to have to iron out in the near future. But going back to the user interface here, there is a striking similarity I've noticed between Parler's UI and Facebook's recent upgrade as far as desktop goes, which I am a huge fan of. Now, as far as the app, I probably will throw up a screenshot somewhere in this video because I'm not going to screen record, but there is a huge similarity between Parler's layout and TikTok's layout, which is something, if you take a look at some of the studies and some of the research that went into determining why TikTok is laid out the way it is, you'll understand there's some really deep psychological reasons that the platform is structured. And Parler seems to be very, very similar, which makes it very easy to navigate. One other technical thing that I'll mention really quickly is that Parler was experiencing a few days back some glitches on its search page. You type something in, and after a certain amount of characters, it ended up completely deleting it. And this has actually led to the platform having a temporary suspension for the engineers to fix this issue. It ended up getting resolved pretty quickly, but that's kind of the stage of the development of the platform. And so this is something that kind of caught me off guard the other day, but to its credit, Twitter as a competitor really has a good 15 plus years experience of platform development under its belt. And so we'll give Parler some time to resolve some of these issues. And also the algorithm, which is something that, again, the founder and CEO, John Matze, has also hinted at is still being actively developed. So there's a lot of upgrades coming in the near future. Finally, let's talk about the promise of the platform. And as far as any promise goes, I do think it has enough traction at this point to keep growing at a steady pace. Since its main selling point is that it vows to champion free speech and has done a fairly decent job of bringing to fruition those promises thus far, I think for the time being, we're going to see relatively an increase in users migrating from Twitter to Parler or utilizing both of these platforms, since Parler is, for the time being, relatively uncensored, especially considering that Twitter recently had its most catastrophic security breach in the company's history. There's currently a lot of uneasiness and, dare I say, lack of confidence and freedom in Twitter, especially considering also that its response to this issue was literally locking down 400,000 verified profiles on the platform, which was considered by many to be a very borderline scary and confusing action. But the last thing I want to add is that from a marketing perspective, I think all of this media attention on Twitter and this debate around the privacy and the security of the platform really serves as good press, good advertising for any platform looking to scale in these controversial times. And it goes to show you that even though there are certain social media monopolies for different demographics, you've got Twitter for political, TikTok for Generation Z and Millennial, LinkedIn for business, there's always the potential for improvement. And sometimes that gap in the market is $1 billion problem waiting to be filled. And I'm certainly not making any sort of claim that Parler has the potential to scale that far just yet, but maybe it does. And of course, time will tell. So that being said, thank you guys so much for checking out this content. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like down below and also comment below what your opinions are on Parler. Do you think it's just another fad that's going to die out in the next few weeks or months, or do you think it actually has a lasting impact in the market and might be around for some time? I'd love to hear your thoughts and get a conversation going down in the comments below. So if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to this channel for future analysis like this on social media, on business, on marketing. And thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, we'll talk next time. Take care. Cheers.